Good evening. Welcome to the Jewish Heritage Center's 32nd annual journal dinner. We truly appreciate you taking the time to virtually attend this event and support the Jewish Heritage Center. Initially, I thought to begin my speech by commenting on the unusual format of the dinner venue. But the reality is, this has become all too usual for the last few months. From Zoom school to Zoom weddings, bar mitzvah graduations, and unfortunately, funerals and shivas. So this topsy-turvy world we're currently living in, this virtual dinner is actually something that too many of us have become accustomed to. Yet, it's not just the celebrations, milestones, and public events that have been upended, but literally, every fabric of our life has changed dramatically, forcing every business and organization to radically adapt and change how they do business. Certainly, the work of the Jewish Heritage Center has been very different over the last few months. But before we can begin to describe our current situation, we need to take a step back. We need to go back to what was only a few months ago, but may seem like ages and ages ago. To a BC era, before coronavirus, when social distancing, Dr. Fauci, and washing hands were not household terminology. The past year, pre-corona, saw amazing growth at the JHC. We once again expanded our organization in unprecedented ways. I feel it's almost cliche at this point for us to talk about continued growth. But yes, we expanded again exponentially in several new directions. In Long Island, our Kiryas division, the Jewish Family Initiative, has seen major growth over the past 12 months. In the fall of 2019, we launched one of our most ambitious projects to date. We opened a Jewish community outreach preschool in East Meadow, Long Island. With the local conservative shul shuttering its preschool in East Meadow last year, the many surrounding neighborhoods with very large Jewish populations were left without any Jewish preschool option. Serving an area that reaches thousands of Jewish children and aligning perfectly with the division of our Long Island Jewish Family Initiative, it was a no-brainer, a must-do for the JHC. Bringing this vision to reality did not come without its challenges. Navigating the bureaucracy of the licensing agencies, hiring the right staff, and recruiting children, all in less than half the time a preschool usually does, were just some of the challenges we faced in creating this school. Yet with tremendous siyata d'shmaya, divine assistance, when September came around, our JFI Children's Learning Center was ready to open their doors for their first school year. And what a year it was. We had 22 children for our first year with such a broad and diverse spectrum of families ranging from completely secular and unaffiliated to Orthodox families. This group of families, teachers, and rabbis really bonded through school, holiday events, Shabbat meals, and so much more. Our non-observant families were ecstatic about the dynamic and professional Jewish experience their children were and continue to receive. It was really an amazing and special first year with such a promising future. Additionally, in Long Island, after a number of years of zoning and permit bureaucracy, we were able to finish renovating our new LI hub for outreach programming. In October, we opened for use a modern and attractive facility that can be used for events, classes, and one-on-one learning sessions. In the short span it has been open, the JHC already hosted hundreds of families for events and have had hundreds of learning sessions. Combining this new preschool program and a new modern hub in Long Island with our existing Stuart and Eileen Stone Hebrew School and family programming, we have been able to reach out to even more young Jewish families in Long Island. With hundreds of kids and their families attending our programming over the past year alone, the JHC's impact on Long Island is being felt now perhaps more than ever. The growth and expansion we have experienced this past year is not contained just to Long Island Kiryas division. Out in Brooklyn, our Youth Inreach division has seen its own unparalleled growth as well. About 12 months ago, we tragically lost one of the boys who frequented our Brooklyn drop-in center for disenfranchised young adults. However, out of that terrible tragedy, the boys, galvanized by their pain of the loss, rallied to help us create Project Shmili, an initiative that provides young Hasidic men and women with the proper mental health care that they sorely need. Since its launch last September, we have been able to provide over 50 of our youth with individual therapy and ongoing weekly group therapy sessions. We developed partnerships with mental health professionals that are trained experts in the necessary field and cultural dynamics. Our Girls Brooklyn division as well has seen much growth under the leadership of Mrs. Rachel Hakimi and with the assistance of Leah Matias. It has grown into a full-fledged division, meeting weekly and servicing over 50 girls on a weekly basis. Our Brooklyn division is accomplishing so much and saving life after life, but there is so much more to do and so many more youth to reach, so we are not going to stop here. This is just a partial glimpse of some of the things that are happening in the busy world of the JHC, and this was all before COVID-19 hit. So, I would like to pass the mic over to my partner, Rabbi Avraham Portnoy, to hear about the JHC tremendous COVID-19 response. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Turk. Good evening, everyone. Wow, what a year it has been. Thank you all for being here tonight and with us always. Rabbi Turk just told us much of what has been going on at the JHC this past year, pre-COVID-19. And as he mentioned, when we look back with pride at this past year and take stock in all what was accomplished, it's amazing to realize how all that dynamic, flourishing growth was just 3 to 12 months ago. Due to the unprecedented disruption caused by COVID-19 pandemic, it feels like it was a different lifetime. And the truth is, when the pandemic hit, like everywhere else, normal programming at the JHC came to a crashing halt. Our preschool closed, Hebrew school closed, drop-in center shut. Events had to be rescheduled. Pesach hotel retreat canceled. We were faced with unprecedented and very difficult questions. How does an organization predicated on the belief that an interpersonal relationship is the most important element to spreading the beauty of Torah Judaism operate with strict social distancing measures? Regulations were changing day by day. Sometimes it seemed hour by hour. How will a multifaceted, dynamic organization like the JHC be able to adapt and readapt to each change? Is it even worth investing energy into programs that you most likely would need to adjust over and over again? With the loss of so much critical funding from our canceled Pesach and Shavuos hotel retreats, how will the JHC continue to operate? When will we be able to resume normal operations, if ever? There was so much uncertainty and unknown. But we knew one thing for sure. Despite not having the answers to all these questions, at the JHC, the show must go on. When dealing with saving lives and neshamos from across the spectrum of Yiddishkeit, of Jewish life, we don't have the luxury to take a see and wait approach. Acknowledging this reality, the staff at the JHC put aside their personal challenges caused by COVID-19, rolled up their sleeves, and went to work. In Queens, the JHC senior directors, my father and Rabbi Moshe Turk, were on the phone virtually day and night, helping hundreds of our alumni navigate the myriad spiritual, halachic, practical, personal, and familial issues and challenges that arose from the pandemic. In Brooklyn, with hundreds of boys and girls out of structured environments, the need for our 1225 programs was greater than ever before. With the pandemic not allowing them to come to our drop-in center, Rabbis Ozer Babad and Eli Stamler devised a new alternative called 1225's Meals on Wheels, where they personally delivered over 1,000 meals and made social distancing personal visits. The program was so impactful that we sent meals to 1225 members now living out of state as far as Toronto. Recently, with the many yeshivas that we had sent boys to still remaining shut, and not wanting to lose the momentum these boys had achieved by joining these yeshivas, we launched a traveling yeshiva program in Flatbush. where these boys could learn in the morning and then travel to different businesses every day where they received first-hand advice and encouragement from the owners of these businesses. Not to be outdone, in Long Island, our Hebrew school and preschool teachers quickly learned to adapt to the new ways of delivering their classes over Zoom. During the pandemic, we had 21 Zoom sessions weekly for kids, reaching over 70 children. Additionally, JFI provided Zoom workshops for adults such as parenting through crisis and Passover prep during Corona. On top of all this, and through all of this, our admin office under the leadership of Rabbi YY Rosenthal had to keep everything operating logistically and financially while processing the shutdown and refunding of hundreds of Pesach hotel guests. So as you can see, so much of the methodology changed during COVID-19, yet the work of the center carried on. The warmth and love and guidance kept going. And on the front lines of the many different and wide-ranging Jewish communities we serve, people found the staff of the JHC was still there for them, and with them, especially in this most challenging of times. We are proud of our staff and hope you are too, because our work is your work. Our success is your success. We could not do any of this without you. So thank you. I will now turn over the podium to the Senior Co-Director of the JHC, Rabbi Moshe Turk, to introduce our special guest speakers tonight.
Thank you, Rabbi Avraham and Rabbi Eliyahu. It is incredible to hear just that recap of this amazing, amazing year at the Jewish Heritage Center. Faced with the absence of a catered affair, the center decided, in keeping with our modus operandi, to make this an evening of inspiration. And we turn to three of some of the most prominent, inspiring, and prolific speakers in Jewish education today. Each of them unique in his own way, and each of them with a special connection to the Jewish Heritage Center. And we're very appreciative to the next three speakers and privileged to be able to present short words of inspiration from Rabbi YY Rubinstein, from Rabbi Moshe Weinberger, and from Charlie Harary. I'd like to first introduce Rabbi YY, someone that for the last 7 or so years has become a regular part of Jewish Heritage Center programming in our Yom Tov hotel events, drawing on his years of learning, culminating with smicha from Gateshead. Rabbi YY speaks with depth, inspiration, and humor. It is a privilege to turn the podium over to hear from our good friend, Rabbi YY Rubinstein.
Hello, it's Monday, June the 29th, and it's the 32nd annual fundraising dinner of the Jewish Heritage Center of Queens and Long Island. And I want to just say hello. My name's Rabbi YY Rubinstein, and add my words of bracha and welcome to you who are participating on this very special occasion, the 32nd annual dinner. And it's not a coincidence in these very difficult months that we've all been through that it should be the 32nd dinner. Because of course 32nd is the same numerical, 32 is the same numerical value of the same word, heart, lave. And I want to tell you from my heart, from my lave, how very, very much I am proud to have been associated with the Jewish Heritage Center over many years and have participated in their retreats and hopefully in their outstanding work, which I think, honestly, in my experience, is without equal in the entire tri-state area and probably further afield even than that. You know, there were three kinds of Jews. The first kind of Jew, well, I'll tell you a story. My first ever visit to the United States of America was when I was learning in Cowlall in a place called Liverpool. Our Cowlall was at the top of a street called Penny Lane, which, if anybody's ever heard of a group called the Beatles, might just ring a bell. And when I was in Cowlall there, we had to go raising funds. And I decided it'd be a great idea to go to America and raise funds here. Never been before. I spent a few days in New York, and then I set out to the first destination that people who knew me and had family in New York and throughout the United States had helped me with my plan of what I should be doing. I went to Chicago. It was January. I didn't know how very cold it gets in January in Chicago. But when I arrived, then the whole of the town was talking about something that happened a few weeks before in the big yeshiva of Telz, Chicago, as I say, just before I arrived there. You see, a few weeks before, the doors of the yeshiva burst open. The boys there were sitting learning their Gemorahs, and in came 30 skinheads, armed with baseball bats to start a fight with the boys in the yeshiva. Well, 30 minutes later, when the ambulances arrived to take the skinheads away, the police asked the rabbi, the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Keller, if he wanted to press charges, and he said yes, he wanted to press charges. And so a week later, through the mail, he received a letter with the names of the 30 anti-Semitic skinheads who had broken into his yeshiva to attack his boys. And when he was looking down the list of names, he saw that one of the boys' names was Landau. Now, the name Landau, as the song says, well, in America, well, do it the other way about. Where I come from in the UK, if somebody's called Landau, they're a Jew. In America, to quote that song, it ain't necessarily so. Landau is indeed a German Jewish name, but it's also a German name. And the largest immigrant group to the United States of America was from Germany, traditionally. So maybe it was a Jewish name, maybe it wasn't, but it troubled the Rosh Yeshiva enough that he and one of the other rabbis of the yeshiva went to see the parents of this boy Landau. And do you know what? He was a Jew. But his parents had never told him he was a Jew. And maybe they didn't know that they were Jews. So when his friends said, hey, let's go and beat up the Jews, he said, yeah, let's go and beat up the Jews. He was a Jew. And at the same time as I was in Chicago hearing that, a very close and good friend of mine called Rabbi Grunfeld was in a city called Moscow, in a country that was then called the USSR. And there was an equal amount of talk going on in the community of another incident that happened just before he arrived, when in an elementary school one day, the top class of this elementary school was preparing for its first day's lesson. In came the teacher, a lady. The students, the pupils all stood up. She moved to her desk, told them to sit down. She took out her papers and said, children, today we're going to discuss God. Now, of course, the USSR being a communist country, then atheism was on the school syllabus. And every day they had to have a daily lesson in atheism. Children, today we're going to discuss God. And so the little class of 11-year-olds are looking. And she said, children, look around the classroom. So all the little children are busy looking around the classroom. What can you see? Can you see God? No. Therefore, God does not exist. And there was a little 11-year-old Jewish boy in that class. This is a true story. And this little Jewish boy leaps to his feet. And he says, children, look around the classroom. What can you see? Can you see the teacher's brain? No. Therefore, the teacher has no brain, which in this occasion was probably true. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean to say it's not there. You see, there's two types of Jews. There are young Jews, and even older Jews, who don't even know they're Jewish, don't know the value of our history, don't know the glory of our heritage, simply don't know they're Jews. Means nothing to them. Then there are other Jews who may not know a lot more, but they know they're Jews. They're proud that they're Jews. And they won't let anybody insult or in any way demean our religion or our God, like that little 11-year-old boy who probably went on to high school in Siberia for his chutzpah, but it was a good chutzpah. But there's a third type of Jew. The ones, I hope, like you and me, who know that we're Jewish and know that we've got a responsibility to make the kid in Chicago like the kid in Moscow. Proud about who he is, proud about who we are. I'm telling you this from the heart. I've been a part of the Jewish Heritage Centre off and on for about, I think, 6-7 years. I have seen the work. I certainly know the people. From the heart, these are the people who speak to the kids from Chicago and the kids from Moscow, or their equivalents, or the kids from Long Island who don't know they're Jewish. From the heart, and that enters their heart and makes all the difference in the world. This is the real deal. These people are the real deal. The work they do is the real deal. They just need some real help at a time when they've not been able to do their annual fundraising retreats over Pesach or Shavuos, and are suffering financially, which means the work that they're doing from the heart to reach out to other people's heart is suffering as well. They need some real help. And I want to tell you a story. Reb Simcha Zissel, the famous Rosh Hashiva of Kelm, wrote in a letter to his son who had recovered from a very serious illness that it was a celebration to him that his son had got better and was soon able to get back to the work he was hoping to do in helping Klal Yisrael, the Jewish people. And then he said something which was amazing. He pointed to one of the most enigmatic and certainly surprising characters in the whole of our Jewish Bible and Tanakh, somebody called Rochav. Rochav, who was a harlot, and yet saved Yeshua's spies, Pinchas and Kalev, whom he sent ahead of the Jewish people to see the lie of the land. And she did help them, and she saved them. And she said, I know that Hashem's on your side. I'll help you with the work of taking the land of Israel for Klal Yisrael, for the Jewish people. Said Reb Simcha Zissel to his son, what was her reward for that? Of course, she converted and became Jewish and ended up married to Yeshua. But guess what? Her reward? 8 high priests, Kohanim Gedolim, descended from Rochav. Not only that, 8 prophets, 8 Nevi'im, were direct descendants of Rochav. 7 Jewish kings were direct descendants of Rochav, and Huldah the prophetess was a great-great-great-granddaughter of Rochav. Said Reb Simcha Zissel, if she who was not part of Klal Yisrael played a part in helping Hashem's Jewish people, Hashem's children, Klal Yisrael, and that was her reward, how much greater is the reward for us who are a part of the family that we get for reaching out and helping people who are like that kid in Chicago who don't even know they're Jewish, people who know they're Jewish but don't know what to do with it, people who are proud of being Jewish and just need to focus it, people who were brought up from and have lost their way that the Jewish Heritage Centre helps to come back. On this Monday, fundraising, June the 29th, it's an opportunity for every single one of us to play the part that Rochav played, to play the part that Hashem wants us to play in helping his Jewish people. And let me say it again, and say it from the heart. I don't know anybody or any organization that does it better than the Jewish Heritage Centre of Queens and Long Island. So whatever you're able to do, the brachas that are going to come to you are enormous. And generally when there's appeal, a person has a figure in their mind. Maybe I can afford this amount or that amount. Double it. Make it double what you intended to give. Because the brachas that came to Rochav, wow, they were enormous, incalculable. And the brachas that come to you for joining together in this lave, in this heartfelt appeal for the Jewish Heritage Centre should in turn be incalculable. Mazel tov, the Jewish Heritage Centre. Mazel tov to Rabbi Portnoy and Rabbi Turk for the fabulous, wonderful job and work that you and your team do.
Thank you, Rabbi YY, for your inspiring and very kind words. Our next speaker is someone whose connection to the Jewish Heritage Center goes back almost 3 decades. In the very early days of the center, we had the amazing good fortune to be able to have on staff with us Rabbi Moshe Weinberger, one of the most warm, inspiring, and unique speakers in the field of Jewish outreach and Jewish education. Rabbi Weinberger went on to become the Rav of Congregation Eish Kodesh in Woodmere. He has since 2013 been Mashpia at Yeshiva University. And his words and shiurim and talks, drawing on well springs of Hasidus and translating them in a way that resonates with Jews of all backgrounds across the world. Rabbi Weinberger has a very unique and special way of touching and reaching people. And in the early days of the center, he was such a great part of building and connecting with a generation of searching and secular Jews in the early days of the center. I'm appreciative to Rabbi Weinberger for sharing a few words of inspiration with us this evening.
Over 30 years ago, I had the unbelievable schus, the privilege, to work together with my dear friends, Rav Moshe Turk and Rav Naftali Portnoy, in the Jewish Heritage Center. It could be close to 35 years ago. And I haven't forgotten those days. And as a matter of fact, I'm still in touch with some of the people, with some of the individuals who are now raised beautiful Jewish families. I'm still in touch with some of them from those years. But I want to share with you a very sweet and simple story, which in my mind embodies what the Jewish Heritage Center is all about. And I've thought about this a lot over the years. You know, there was the great tzaddik, the Mashgiach, Rabbi Eliyahu Turk, and when Rabbi Eliyahu was in England, he was trying very hard to raise money for the yeshiva, and they brought him to a house of a wealthy Jew, and the people from the yeshiva, the Askanim, warned Rabbi Eliyahu that this particular Jew is not at all observant, but he gives a tremendous amount of tzedakah to the Jewish community, to the Orthodox community. And they wanted Rabbi Eliyahu to know that maybe it's better not to talk about religious subjects, but to try to speak to him about helping a Jewish institution. And Rabbi Eliyahu understood, and Rabbi Eliyahu went with these people to meet this wealthy person. And he was very nice to them, and they sat down, and Rabbi Eliyahu didn't waste any time at all. He asked the man, I don't understand. I don't even see a mezuzah on all of the doors, and I understand that you're not observant of mitzvahs, and yet I've heard you give and give and give to yeshivas. Why? So you can imagine the people that went with Rabbi Eliyahu were so nervous about this. But the tzaddik, he just says the truth. And the man actually said, Rabbi, he was a European Jew from Lithuania, spoke a fluent Yiddish, and he says, Rabbi, I appreciate your asking. And I want to tell you why. When I was a young man, I was sent by my family to learn in Radin. Now, Radin, as everybody knows, was the yeshiva of the Chavetz Chaim. The truth is, I really was not prepared for that. I wasn't so interested in it, and I wasn't particularly good at learning, but my parents wanted so badly for me to go there. I came to Radin, and I went for a faher, for an exam with Mashgiach or somebody, and I wasn't accepted. And I was actually relieved that I wasn't accepted. I had nowhere to go. It was already late. There's no big train station over there in Radin. I had to go someplace to get a train. I had nowhere to stay, and I didn't know where to go. I didn't know anybody. The only person I knew who lived in Radin was the Chavetz Chaim, and I figured I'll try. So he said, I asked where he lives, and I went and I knocked on the door, and the Chavetz Chaim asked me who I was, and I told him, and I explained that I wasn't accepted to the yeshiva, and the Chavetz Chaim said, okay, we could talk about that, but you're certainly accepted to spend the evening with me, and I would love for you to come here and be with me for the night. And he said, I came into the Chavetz Chaim, I had dinner there, and I went to sleep. The Chavetz Chaim said, well, you could leave tomorrow or something, don't worry, just you'll stay by me as long as you need. So he said, that night I was lying there thinking about everything that happened, and I'm in the Chavetz Chaim's house, in this room, and it was cold. In the middle of the night, there was somebody walking in, and I made believe I was sleeping, and I saw it was the Chavetz Chaim, and he took his coat off. They didn't have extra blankets. He took his coat off, and he put it on top of me. He was worried that I was cold. And then he left. So the man said, listen, Rabbi Lapian, I want to tell you something. I didn't turn out the way my parents would have wanted, or the Chavetz Chaim would have wanted. And maybe one day I'll return. But from that coat of the Chavetz Chaim, I have warm feelings for Yiddishkeit. I have warm feelings for the yeshivas. It's my own personal problem why I haven't come back, but I have warm feelings. The Jewish Heritage Center, Rabbi Turk, Rabbi Portnoy, thinking back on those years, the classes were wonderful. The teaching was great. And I enjoyed giving the classes. But it was much, much more about relationships. It was about throwing blankets over Jews who are living in a very cold time. And maybe some of them have become observant, maybe some of them haven't. But whoever has been touched by the Jewish Heritage Center has warm feelings for Yiddishkeit, warm feelings for Liban Torah. So I want to wish my dear friends, Rabbi Turk and Rabbi Portnoy, continued Hatzlacha, and all the other people are now involved. I really don't know the organization now, but I remember. And they should have the strength to warm up Jews, to prepare for the day that we're going to be able to all return to a nice, warm Yerushalayim. The Gula Hashem v'amitis, me'heb yamin amen v'amen.
Thank you, Rav Moshe, for your warm words of inspiration about the center. We too have such fond memories of our times together, working together in those days. Our last speaker this evening, Mr. Charlie Harary, was a prominent lawyer who became CEO of H3 Capital, an equity company based in New York. I can't imagine how much time he spends at that job, because Charlie has become synonymous with words of inspiration across the globe. Literally hundreds of thousands of people have been tuning in to his broadcasts. Also, different populations, from the learned and the involved and heavily in outreach. The center's connection with Reb Charlie goes back some 15 or odd years or so, when we first had the idea to build a new religious community on Long Island in East Meadow, which would be a hub of outreach, but also provide affordable housing for young B'nai Torah. We had 13 families ready to leave Queens and venture as pioneers into Long Island. Charlie Harary was one of those 13. The project was aborted at the very last moment. And it took another 15 years for the Jewish Heritage Center, through the pioneering work of Rabbi Eliyahu Turk and Rabbi Avraham Portnoy and so many others, to create this new flourishing community on Long Island. And Charlie went on to Woodmere and to Klal Yisrael in such an amazing way. We're appreciative to Charlie Harary for joining us for words of inspiration this evening. Charlie.
When I think about the Jewish Heritage Center, I think very much about an organization dedicated to bringing out the essential spirituality in everything. And very much it's so connected to this period of time. And I want to share with you a message that to me very much represents what the Jewish Heritage Center really is all about. We're living in unprecedented times. We've witnessed a period in history that will be forever remembered. The world came to a screeching halt. Science, medicine, totally dumbfounded with what to do. Markets collapsing, economies shifting, all within like 6 weeks. And when you live during these periods of times of disruption, times of uncertainty, you end up looking at the world in really one of two ways. And the way in which you see the world makes all the difference in the world. I remember when this thing first started, I got a call from a friend of mine. I spent a lot of time helping CEOs grow, helping companies grow, helping strategy. And so it was the beginning of this, if you can imagine the beginning when this hit in March, which seems like years ago, when March came this year and the whole world shut down, companies were spiraling out of control. And it was one phone call, one conference call. It was every day, it was harder than the next. And it was one particular late night, and a friend of mine called me, and I had a tough day. And he says, "You're okay?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You don't sound okay." I'm like, "I'm okay." He goes, "You don't sound okay?" I'm like, "I'm okay." He said, "You forgot about the seed." I said, "The what?" He goes, "The seed. You forgot about the seed." I said, "The seed? What in the world are you talking about? What seed?" He goes, "The seed." I'm like, "Yeah, I heard the word. I don't know what you're talking about." He goes, "You forgot about the seed. Check your email." I hang up the phone. I go into my office. I look at my email, and I see an email from him that says, "The seed." And there's 2 attachments, 2 pages there. And I clicked the pages, and it hit me. The seed. I forgot about the seed. 9 months ago, I was speaking at an event, and I found an excerpt from one of the most inspiring Jewish books I've ever read. The book is called The Nesivas Shalom, written by a great rabbi named the Slonim Rebbe. In fact, when I was young and I was getting more interested in Judaism, that was one of the books that I looked to for inspiration. And in that book, he has a concept that blew me away. He speaks about what is the saddest day of the Jewish calendar. The saddest day of the year for Jews is Tisha B'Av, Tisha B'Av. It's a day that takes place in which we remember the destruction of the temple. But it's not just the destruction of the temple. It's destruction of Jewish life. It's destruction of seeing God's presence in this world. It is the source of everything that we're lacking comes down to this one day. And it's a day in which you don't just roll into it. There's a 3-week period beforehand that has sort of restrictions, and it follows by 9 days, and the week before, and the day before, and the day of. And then when the day comes, you're sitting on the floor reciting lamentations, remembering the time. It's so sad. It's so focused on what we're missing. And something happens in that day that it's subtle, which most people miss, but it's so powerful. In the afternoon, there's a special rule from when the beginning of the holiday, beginning of this fast day, from nighttime till the afternoon, where you're not allowed to sit on a chair. Like a mourner sits in low places, the person has to act like that. And when 1 o'clock or whatever, when midday comes, you get to sit on chairs. And if you've ever practiced this with a group of people, it's like a really interesting moment. People finally get up, they're sitting down, they feel a little bit better. And like that moment like changes everything. You go from that moment to a little later on, you get to eat again. And the next thing you get to listen to music again. That weekend is a special Shabbos of comfort. And the next thing you know, you're ascending out of that depression into the high holidays and the holidays. It's almost as if the whole process of mourning turns on that moment of the afternoon. And the rabbi says, what is that moment? He says, that is the moment of the seed. Picture, if you will, the rabbi says, that in your hand is a seed. A little seed. You pick it up, you're looking at it. It's something. It's not much, but it's something. And you take this little seed that's in your hand and you have something, and you drop it into the ground. Now, if you're looking into the ground, what you find is that once the thing drops into the ground, the shell of the seed starts to shake and slowly starts to come apart. And that little seed that you had slowly loses its shell. Now, if you're looking at it with physical eyes, you're saying, I had something, a seed. Now I have nothing. I lost my seed. It wasn't much, but it was something. I put it in the ground and now I have less. That's a bad deal. Thanks, ground, for nothing. But if you have a little bit of wisdom inside you, you realize that that seed actually contained a life force, an energy, a source of power that has within it the ability to give birth to not a seed, but a tree and fruits and thousands of seeds. The life force that is within that seed is so much more valuable than the seed itself. In fact, the shell was holding it back from its value. When you lost a shell, you didn't have less. You had more. You had infinitely much more. When it was just a shell, all you had was a seed. But as soon as the seed fell away, you had the potential of so much. The rabbi says that was the moment where you got up. You celebrated when you mourned the destruction of the temple, the destruction of a clarity of God's existence. At some point every year, the seed of that year begins to fall away and your world starts to shake. You're sitting on the floor, you're hungry, you feel gross, and you know where to turn. At that moment when the shell falls away, now there's new life being born. Now there's the potential for anything that can happen. This is what he calls the Rosh Hashanah of Rosh Hashanah. It is the moment where anything is possible. In Judaism, the moments when things begin are the moments of the highest celebrations. You celebrate a child's birth. He didn't do anything yet. What are you celebrating? Why don't you celebrate when the guy or the girl does something? No, because when they're born at the bris, when the baby's born, they have the potential to be anything. You celebrate a bat mitzvah for what? The kid's not a man. You ever see a 13-year-old boy? His voice is still squeaking. He's a man. For real, he can barely leave the house without telling his mom where he's going. No, what happens is at the moment for 12 or 13, a girl or a boy, there is an infusion of spirituality, a new soul, if you will, what we call a good inclination, a yetzer tov. Something comes into the the being of this kid. And now we celebrate that that's the first moment that they have this enhanced spirituality. Anything's possible. Look at a couple. What are you celebrating the wedding for? What if it doesn't work out? Celebrate the 50th anniversary. That's a good return on your investment. No, but when they first walk down that aisle, the potential, we're celebrating the moment that the shell falls away and the life force is born. If you look around at life, you find that there are two types of people in this world. There are those that only see shells. That's all they see. They see bodies. They see walls. They see blocks. They see limitations. It's always terrible. It was always better yesterday. Do you remember when? Do you remember when? Do you remember when? And that's not going to be. You know those people, it's not going to be. It's not going to be. Be realistic. Be realistic. Be realistic. They walk into a room and they're like, this is all they serve. They walk to a place, this is all they got. They look at people. They don't look like them. They're already judging them. The minute things go a little bit wrong, they're terrible. They just see shells. They just see the shell. And the shell's never enough. And for those types of people, as long as everything is okay, things are fine. But the minute the shell starts to shake, the minute the world starts to change, that gets very uncomfortable. They don't like change. They don't like when somebody new shows up. They don't like new ideas. They just like the shells to stay shells. They don't like to hear someone else's opinion. They don't like to be challenged to change their own way of thinking. There's like an age thing where they think up until a certain age, you stop changing. They see shells. This world is static. You know what they want to do now? They want to go back to normal. Then there are other people in this world. You know what they see? They see life forces. They see energies. They see spirituality. Look at their family. They see more than just a body married to somebody else or a child. They see opportunity. They see a soul. They see things that could be unlimited potential. They see challenge and they're looking to get over the wall. They see a world that's shaking and they say, if the world is shaking, there's opportunity here that there wasn't before. We're living in a time where there's opportunity there wasn't before. We're living in a time where we can connect to people in a way that we couldn't connect before. Where we can speak to people and create relationships at a level that is deeper than we could have before when life was regular and normal and going a million miles an hour and half of it was spent looking at a screen. We're living at a time where family feels different, where work feels different, where giving feels different, where community feels different. We're living at a time where there's a chance for us to go deeper than we've ever gone before, where life has a different meaning, where we've suffered in a way that we haven't, where we've seen things that would have taken a decade of experience to appreciate. There are people that have grown up 20 years in 2 months. They now have the wisdom of someone 20 years older than them in what life means and matters. Chances to be connected to people differently, chances that we never had before. People that see shells love to predict the future because they just want the shells to all be safe in the future. People that see energy, they live in the present. They want to capture every second of every day. They want to suck the marrow out of life. They recognize that if I'm sitting at home with my family for a meal, this is really important. I'm not taking this for granted. I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to deepen this. I want the people around this table to be closer to me than they were before this virus. When I'm on the phone with a client, when I'm thinking about what I want to do for a living, when I'm praying to God, when I'm giving in my life, I'm not doing my life the way I did my life pre-March. I'm not going back to normal. I'm going forward to greatness. I've learned. I've seen. I don't got to be reminded anymore. people that see opportunity when the shell shakes, they look at the world and they see, I got a chance at making this world different, making my world different. And I'm not going to miss it. I'm not missing it because we're going to go back to normal at some point. You know it and I know it. With God's help, this is going to get figured out. Hopefully no one will have to die in between, and hopefully everyone will be healthy and safe. Hopefully we won't lose any more life or any more health or any more money. At some point, this is going to go back to normal. And when it does, we're going to look back and go, I should have taken advantage of it more. I should have been more focused. I should have been more present. I should have been here. That's the chance we have. That's the greatness that's in front of us. It's almost as if the way to deal with this now is to look at it with the eyes of a child. I got a kid. One of my kids did something that was so awesome. You know, the biggest thing now is Zoom, right? Everyone's on Zoom. I've been using Zoom for like 6 years. When you have clients that are international, like video conferencing is not a new thing. My son, God bless him, didn't know Zoom existed 2 months ago, right? He thought Zoom was like when daddy goes fast in the car. So now my house is also a school. So I come by in the hallway weeks ago, and I see my son outside and walking around playing in our hallway. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, nothing. And he gave me those eyes. You know those eyes? I spent a lot of my life in the principal's office. I ended up becoming a lawyer because my options were either going to jail or representing guys in jail. I had no other options. I know those eyes. And he's like, I'm like, whoa, those eyes. Where should you be? He's like, nowhere, Daddy. I'm like, whoa, it's Daddy. Like, no. Where should you be? He's like, no, nowhere. I'm like, you gotta be in class. And I see him getting all nervous. There's like, so I take him into his room and I notice that he's in class. On his screen is the Zoom, and he's on gallery view and all the students are there. And he's there. But I'm like, you're not, how? And I look closer and I realize what he did. In Zoom, you can create a background picture. He took a picture of himself pretending to like study, snapped it, and put it as his background, turned off his video, and then left. The teacher's looking around, seeing him like this, thinking, oh, he's probably studying. And then he booked out. I'm thinking to myself, I have never been so proud of you in my life. That was awesome. To go back to class. And I went downstairs thinking to myself, you know, I've been using Zoom for 6 years. All I know how to do is turn on and off my video and on and off mute. The kid's got it for 5 minutes and he's already outplaying his teachers. How is that possible? And the answer is because my kid sees life force. He sees opportunity. Kids don't see shells. That's why they can play with anybody. That's why they can laugh and cry in a moment's notice. That's why they play with spoons and forks and they make up games. Because when they deal with life, they're here. When you're here, you see the nuances that everybody misses. There's a great line in Torah. When the brothers are trying to get Benjamin back from what they thought was the prince of Egypt, it was Joseph, they say in English, how am I going to go back to our father Jacob? And my brother is not with me. And I heard a great rabbi say, how am I going to go back to my father and my brother, the young one, is not with me? How are we going to go up to God after 120 and that young one inside us, that heart? How did I start seeing shells? How did I lose my youth, my opportunity, my desire for change, my ability to look at the world and see, how can I make it better? How can I go deeper? How can I be here now? This time is going to be defined not by how smart we are, not by our DNA. It's going to be defined by our perspective. For those that live in the present and are looking for the life force behind the seed, they're going to grow by leaps and bounds. For those that are going to live into the future and are going to be focused in the shell, it's going to be a tough roller coaster. My blessing to me and to you is that we should have spiritual eyes. We should see behind the walls. We should see behind the seeds. Everything that shakes When the physical goes down, the spiritual now has opportunity. We're living in a moment of transition. And hopefully that transition will usher in more depth in our lives, more relationships, deeper connection to God, deeper connection to things that matter. And when this is all done, hopefully, we'll look back and say, it's hard. But that new beginning was the greatest thing that ever happened. We should see that. We should live that way. We should see a time where not only are we healthy physically, but we're clear in our minds and clear in our eyes.
Thank you, Charlie, for your inspiring words. And thank you as well to Rabbi YY Rubinstein and Rabbi Moshe Weinberger for sharing your words of chizuk with us. It is really meaningful to us that you took the time out of your extremely busy schedules to enhance our dinner program. The Jewish Heritage Center is blessed to have such an incredible and devoted staff through whose work the past years has been the driving force of the Jewish Heritage Center's tremendous accomplishments. These past months have highlighted their commitment and abilities, demonstrating their unrelenting dedication to helping others. As you've heard tonight, the pace of activity at the center is virtually nonstop as we go from event to event, program to program, and often concurrent, simultaneous events and programs throughout the year. And our staff has done an outstanding job adjusting to the new challenges and needs that arose due to COVID-19. We cannot begin to maintain this level of programming without our associate directors, two incredibly devoted, talented, and capable young rabbis who have assumed the primary responsibility and daily management of all of the center's undertakings, Rabbi Eliyahu Turk and Rabbi Avraham Portnoy. An organization of this size and scope can only run smoothly with a very competent and proficient administrator, which we have been fortunate to find in Rabbi Shai Rosenthal. His regular work throughout the year, with numerous busy divisions and a multitude of tasks and events competing for his attention, each with its own needs, on its own is quite an achievement. When COVID hit and everyone needed to work remotely and events had to be run remotely, his ability to turn us so quickly into a virtual organization was truly amazing. Special thank you to Rabbi YY Rubinstein for the tremendous work he has done for the Jewish Heritage Center the past 5 years, and we wish him much nachas in all of his ongoing efforts on behalf of Klal Yisrael. The JHC has tremendous appreciation to the dynamic, selfless, and dedicated Rabbi YY Babad, who works day and night saving lives on, or should I really say saving lives, taking them off the streets in Brooklyn and beyond. Working alongside Rabbi YY is an individual who joined our Brooklyn youth team last year. He brought an incredible amount of energy, enthusiasm, and caring, working in Borough Park and on the streets of Flatbush. We are so fortunate to have him as part of our team and thank him for all that he has done, Eli Stamler. We give a special shout out and thanks to Mrs. Rachel Hakimi, who runs our Borough Park Girls Division. She utilizes her warmth, care, and keen understanding of today's youth to connect with many Brooklyn girls. As well, this year we've been fortunate beneficiaries of the creativity and insightfulness of our girls event volunteer, Mrs. Leah Matias. As we've mentioned earlier this evening, our Long Island division initiated a new Kiruv preschool with unbelievable success for its first year. This could not have been accomplished without the tireless efforts of our experienced director, Mrs. Toby Portnoy. We thank her, and as well as her staff, for all that she has done to get the school off to such an amazing start. We also want to give special thanks to Rabbi Moshe Vasogi, who has a keen insight into Kiruv in general and Sephardic Kiruv in particular. As the leader of our Sephardic division in Great Neck, he has managed to connect his fellow Sephardim on a deep and a personal level.
to our new administrative assistant who joined our staff this year and so easily fit into her role and handles the demands of our busy office with her warm, calm, and capable demeanor, Mrs. Adina Gunsberg, thank you. As we have said, the work of each one of these care professionals know of no time limits. Much of their work is done on nights and on weekends, on Shabbosos and on Yom Tovim, requiring their great dedication. But even more so, it involves boundless commitment of those who stand behind them to support them in all of their efforts, taking care of their homes and of their children, working just as tirelessly behind the scenes without glamour or notice. The real recognition and appreciation of all that is being accomplished goes to these unsung heroes. Mrs. Sima Babad, Mrs. Rivki Stamler, Mrs. Miriam Grunstein, Mrs. Tzipora Rosenthal, Mrs. Naama Portnoy, and Mrs. Shifra Turk. Over 30 years ago, the Jewish Heritage Center was the brainchild of four generous visionaries, Mr. Edward Chernoff, Reb Dov Wallowitz, Mr. Jerry Williams, and Mr. Yisrael Brum Zichrono Livracha, who not only shaped its beginnings, but single-handedly carried it financially through its formative stage of development. We are sure that the founders share with us the nachas of the JHC accomplishments, and we are forever grateful to them for giving us the means and opportunity to make all of this happen. What is ours is truly theirs. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Have a wonderful night. Thank you. Thank you.